Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Kamrin Carver.
Well, I think this is the first time I've been here without a mask. I just feel naked. And I got to hug someone. I mean, this is Christmas. Welcome back. I wore my fun shirt today because it's a fun topic. I don't have a cool hat like Rick did, but hopefully you can forgive me for that. I love this month's theme and how it's taking us through play and fun and just connecting with those childlike parts of ourselves. I have not always been the best at that, so when I was asked to speak on this topic, I kind of got a little anxious, like, oh crap, here's another one of those hypocrisy topics I get to talk about. But, you know, hypocrisy is good too, because it teaches us to grow and to put focus in other places as well. The week's theme, So Happy Together. I've heard that song in my head since I got this as my topic. I love that that ditty, and I want that energy in this talk today. I want to just feel how happy we are when we're together. I stood at the door this morning as people walked in, and just so many comments about how good it feels to be in community, how good it is to see each other, that sense that we can't get anywhere else. I mean, try to replicate it anywhere, but unless you're in community, unless you're in a group, that is a very specific need that just does not get met otherwise. All right, so today we will be talking about play in community. And I love this picture because it just makes me want to get outside with everybody and start playing anything, especially in this weather. Oh my gosh, like it just feels amazing out there right now. And I would really like to allow for the already existing play that we have together to be recognized. Like, this is a goal that, yes, we have in general, but at the same time, we're already doing it in so many ways. I mean, you just listen to that song. You listen to our special musical number. You just watch how it shows up everywhere. We are really good at this. And so being able to celebrate where we actually are helps us to know, where we want to be and to make that even better. I know that we've had some great activities in the last talks that have been given. Rob had us all up and dancing, and Myrta had us laughing our heads off. And I bet you're really curious what I'll be having you do today, but we'll let you sit on that for a minute. I know that in our society, we are driven towards the big, the bold. Extroverts are celebrated in our society, right? They're the leaders, they're the movie stars, they're, always up on stage. And I am not one of those people. Like, I know that is really contradictory to most of the way that I live my life, but I'm an introvert, and I get very tired if I am in community for too long. And so I want to speak to both sides of this humanity. Like, there's some of us that get really charged when we're in groups and could be there all day long, and if we're home alone, like, our energy just gets drained and we just have to get back out and be around people. And then there's those of us that get super drained when we're out around people, and we can only get recharged when we're home alone by ourselves. And how do we make that work if we're on the introverted side? And how do we keep balance when we're on the extroverted side? So I'll be speaking to both of those today. As we begin this discussion today, there is a gentle reminder that I'd like to bring your attention to. Remember this? When I spoke in January, I showed you guys where we're going to be going for the year, and I wanted to kind of orient you to play. Do you see play there? We're there today, this month, and I just want to check in with you. How are you guys doing? Did you even remember this was around? Are you looking at your previous goals and seeing where you're at now? I myself have not, so I'm not shaming you. But this is a really good reminder. I come to this center to spiritually grow and to change and to become a better version of myself. And here's one tool that I can use to do that with. And so just really briefly, bring yourself into this area of play. The center of the wheel being a 0, the furthest part of the wheel being a 10. Where are you at on that spectrum, on that line, as far as how you're incorporating play into your life right now? Just get a read on that, because, like we said, at the end of the year, that wheel, it's going to be all bumpy maybe in the beginning, and then we want to fill that out. So just bring your attention back to that, and as we move forward today, maybe create some goals for yourself as we're talking and see where you want to go with that. There is so much about this topic today that's already come out, like even just in the songs and in what people are saying. I can feel the energy of play that is here. And I know that we're really going to have a lot of fun. But there are still those shadow elements, right? There's still these parts of us that exist that don't really connect with that energy all the time. And so I'd like to kind of talk about why this topic is so important, because, from the time we look like this and life is just full of wonder and joy and so much going on, until the time we look like this and, oh, where'd it go? It's a little contrast, right? Like, what takes us from one space to the other? That's the question for today. Because whether or not we're really good at being playful, there are still parts of us that the older we get and the more we get engaged with this world, it sucks it out of us, right? And there's a million different reasons why it does that. But what I really want to connect to is, where are we at now? So when we look at that wheel, when we think about play, what happens to us? Do we feel anxious? Do we feel like, oh my gosh, play, I don't even know how anymore, or that feels so uncomfortable? Or are we like, I'm so excited, let's go, like a kid in the sandbox? Where are we at on that spectrum, and from day to day and group to group, activity to activity? Just getting an awareness around what our relationship is to this. Do we have beliefs around this? Is it something that only children do? Is it something that we avoid if we can, or create more of? When we venture out into the world of play, do we experience it as abundantly as the air around us, or does it suffocate us when we try to think about getting out and doing anything playful? I know that we don't all feel one way all the time, and so maybe kind of feel into this for yourselves. Where are we at right now? Where are we at in general? Allow yourself to really get a holistic focus on what's going on for you. So the question then becomes, what is it that takes this away from us? Because I think if we can figure that part out, maybe we can work our way backwards and bring it back. I think that everybody's story is a little different. I was talking to my son last night, and he lives in Yuma. And I was just talking to him about, his experience with this, because he's in the military. He gets sick about every other month. And I'm floored, because this kid never got sick before when he lived with me, and now he's sick all the time. And I was like, why do you think that is, buddy? And he's like, I don't know, Dad, because he always gets mad when I go deep. He hates that. Curse of being a therapist's son. What's happening inside of you right now? I can just get sick, Dad. I'm like, no, you can't, all right? It means something. So anyway, he humors me every now and then. This is one of those times he humored me. And through deductive reasoning, we figured out that his sense of community had been taken. And you'd think, when you go into the military, you got this hoo-ha brotherhood that's just going to welcome you in with open arms. Well, my son is one of those weeds you were just singing about. He is one of those that does not belong in the military. He belongs in some upper echelon educational system with all of the brilliant minds of our time. And he's down here with all the grunts that just don't care about the stuff he does. And he's lost that sense of community. He is my polar opposite. He loves being out there, just playing with the world and always having people surrounding him, and he's very alone right now. And that really woke me up. It was like, he's getting these horrific illnesses, every other month, and what's missing? It's community. And I think that is so important for us to see that connection, because sometimes we just like brush the elements of our bodies off onto, just, oh, it's going around. Oh, well, of course. So, it's this, it's that, without really actually realizing like where those maladies really come from. When we look at the hierarchy of needs that Maslow put together for us, it's really key that we understand where we're at on this. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this pyramid, but basically its premise is until you have met the need below whatever level you're on, you cannot experience that level. So you can't have safety and security in your world until your physiological needs are met, right? So unless you're getting food and shelter and you're in that place where those needs are being met, you can't start feeling safe. You can't start feeling safe in your home or with your job or with your finances. And you can't start caring about loving and belonging in certain places unless you have safety, unless you have something to build off of. So as you move up, esteem then becomes super essential, because without esteem, you can't play. Play is actually in that self-actualization category. So if you're looking into, like, why am I not able to connect with this part of myself? Look at that hierarchy of needs. Which one of these aren't being met before? And don't try to force something prematurely unless those prior needs have been met. Does that make sense? It's so many of us, I think we get super excited about like, oh, I want to do this thing. And like, I heard this amazing talk by Kamrin this Sunday, and I'm going to absolutely go change my whole life and play. And then we've got like these other needs that just aren't happening. And then we wonder why we're failing. But if we don't put that together, we can kind of feel a little lost or hopeless. So I think it's important that we have that as a foundation moving forward with the dialogue. So when we look at the things that are standing in our way, I like to go back to Myrna and Rob's activities. If you were here, if you got to experience either of those, it's a really good barometer for you to determine like how comfortable or uncomfortable was I doing those things, right? And if you were super uncomfortable getting up and dancing with everybody in this room, maybe one of those lower needs aren't being met for you, and so you didn't feel like that could happen for you. Or when we're all laughing hysterically in the room together, and you're just looking around like, how are you doing this and I can't? Maybe you've got some feedback coming at you that way too. So just some things to be thinking about, because if joy and playfulness and enthusiasm aren't naturally expressing from us, there's something amiss. There's something blocking it, because it's always there. We just have to move whatever is in the way. It's not like we have to go find something. It's not like this doesn't exist and we have to develop it like a skill. This is literally what we are without everything else. And all we have to do is look to our children to see how true that really is. Thank you. Yes. Can I get an amen? Yeah. All right. So the affirmation that we were given today through church headquarters is, I am joyful within my community. Now, again, pay attention to what your body does when you read those words. Do you feel aligned with that? Do you feel like you're disconnected from that? Do those words mean nothing to you? Like, it really does tell us a lot about how we are doing in these areas of our lives when we see words like this. What is our experience with community? Have we had joyful moments? Have we been able to play? So much of our experience of that is what we've actually done. And what we've done then is our template for what we're going to do in the future, or what can come after that. So I think that, what Rob did with us and what now Kevin's doing with us, and making sure the community gets together often and having fun is really important, really essential, because it takes what we do on Sundays and it pulls us out into the rest of our lives. Lots of us have nowhere else to play but here. This is our only sandbox, right? We don't have friends that we call up and say, hey, let's hang out, let's do a movie or whatever. So this becomes that place, and then bringing people that are important to us into this space so that they can then create more of that for us and for those around us. So it becomes a community effort. I look at at connection as probably the most important aspect of mental health that we have at our disposal. I do specialize in addiction and that recovery world, like Rob pointed out. And the number one barometer that I use in that intervention is level of connection. So when somebody is struggling with mental health issues or addiction issues, it's usually directly related to how connected they feel to community. And so that's where I go, and that's where we start to focus, because as we're robbed of that part of our world, we start to get sick, we start to wither, we start to die like a plant without the sun. And so if you're feeling any of these symptoms in your life, like things just aren't what you want them to be, it's probably because this area is lacking sufficiently. Charles Schaeffer once said, "We are never more fully alive and more completely ourselves or more deeply engrossed in anything than when we are playing." So yes, this is true, right? And we can play all day long with ourselves, but sorry. We can play alone all day long. And we can only get so far, right? But unless we start to engage with others, there's something that's lacking, right? So like, it's important that we play, and we do have that time that we can get playful in those alone times. But it's also important that we do so with our community and with others as well. Because if we're going to truly understand who we are at our deepest level and take ourselves to the breadths that we are capable of going, this is how it's done. This is our vehicle. So as we kind of go back into our past, we can see that the human species is a pack animal, right? Like we cannot survive on our own. We absolutely have to have each other. And that's why solitary confinement is one of the worst tortures that we can inflict upon each other as human beings. I'd like to bring this point home a little bit. If you can go back into your past, if you can just think back really lightly, really generally upon the last time that you, let's say, built a fort as a child, or the last time that you played with dolls with your friends when you were little, the last time that your friends asked you to come out on a play date and you went over to their house. Can you even remember that last time? And isn't that so weird to sit and think, wow, there really was a last time? And yes, that chapter of our lives, that childhood phase of development, it did kind of weed those moments out. And as an adult, we can recreate them. We can actually continue that play. We can call our friends up and go for a ride through the neighborhood. We can build a fort in our living room and have some imagination time together. These aren't things that we literally have to leave in our past. As the statements go through our heads, we can really tell like where our wounding is. If our wounding is in time management, oh, I don't have time to play. If our wounding is in, oh, that's such a child thing to do, then our wounding is in the ability to connect with our inner child. We can tell by the excuses that we give, I'm too tired to do that, where the work really needs to be done. So, understanding where our spontaneous desire to play got left by the wayside, following those breadcrumbs, we can find our way home. For me, the wounding that I experienced really, really early on was as a young man. I was blessed with enormous amounts of self-loathing and internalized homophobia. Those were the gifts life gave to me. And I used them to destroy everything in my world. I think back to those days, and they were so dark. I mean, this little 11-year-old boy that's like, oh, crap, I think I'm gay. Like, that really sucks. But then back in those days, being gay in a little 11-year-old brain was like having AIDS. Those two things were the same. So, like, every time the phone would ring or the mail would come or I'd go to a doctor appointment, I literally thought they would just know I was gay and that I had AIDS and they were going to tell my parents. I mean, to think, like, that sounds funny now, but like a decade of just thinking, I'm going to spend eternity in darkness and I am never going to see my family again. Like, that's how I spent my youth. So, like, I didn't really play after that. And all of my energy and attention was just hyper-focused on making sure nobody knew these things about me. And if all my energy is going into that one direction, if that's like how I'm spending every day of my life, like, how much of that Maslow's hierarchy is being met so that I can go out and do these playful activities? So I tell that story to just draw you to your own story. Like, what siphoned your energy away that helped you to stay maybe in that blocked area of your life and of your psyche? We want to make sure that we understand ourselves well enough, because unless we know what got us there, it's a little more difficult to know how to undig what was buried. The way that I like to do this kind of work is clinical. This book is amazing, and it takes us back into all of that childhood wounding. It's the best inner child work that I've seen. I recommend it to as many of my clients as possible. And one of the quotes that stood out to me that really I thought would help us in our conversation today was this: toxically shamed people tend to become more and more stagnant as life goes on. They live in guarded, secretive, and defensive way. They try to be more human, perfect, or controlling, or less than human, losing interest in life or stagnated. And, you know, like, this is kind of that I don't know if you guys saw Hook, you know, the one with Robin Williams, when Peter Pan grows up and then he comes back and as an adult, and that he has to, like, convince the Lost Boys that that's who he is. Amazing movie. But this is what I think is that, like, if you watch him as an adult shaming his children, right, and he's kind of lost in this world that he has created for himself and forgotten who he is, I love to use that as kind of a metaphor for returning to self. And when I was working in the treatment centers, you know, that scene where the Lost Boys are, like, manipulating Peter's face, and then they push back, and they're like, "Oh, there you are, Peter." And it's that feeling, like, we're there. We just got to get back to it. That magic, that play is always inside of us, just like that movie points out. The maturation process really takes us from carefree, you know, existence into this, like, state of fear and responsibility, and, you know, we just get so weighed down that we forget that we actually have access to such, like, this vast reservoir of energy that we never really give much credit to. You know, we give such credit to our coffee in the morning, but how much more energy could we get if we tapped into these parts of ourselves? This center was a huge part of the reintegration process for me. I got involved at every level. Like, when I found community here, it's the first time I'd found community in my entire life. You know, as an introvert, I was always forced to go play with my friends, forced to go be on sports teams, forced to, like, do all of this horrible stuff with scouting that I really hated. And those that know me are laughing the loudest right now, because, like, that just wasn't me. But when I found this center, like Rob was talking about, I got involved in everything. Like, I could not get enough. I was volunteering everywhere. And it was because I had so much to heal. And I found the greatest joy with the teens, because being in that energy brought me to life. It took me back to the place where my wounding took place, and it showed me that I could heal by giving that kind of healing to them. So, yes, thank you. Absolutely. It was wonderful. So, case in point, right? Like, if you want to know where to heal yourself, find out where your wounding is and give it there, right? So that's how the breadcrumbs work. If we can go back to those places, we get to heal. And I think this community is a great place to do that, because there's so many areas where that can happen. Another way we can do this is to just find role models, like people who are close to us that we really admire and really want to be like. My grandma was this for me. She just passed away last month, and I mourn her energy more than like any death that I've experienced in my life, because she was this. She was 92 years old, but I'm telling you, till the end, she was in drama club. She was dancing in the kitchen with all the grandkids, great-grandkids. She was walking every day. This woman had so much zeal and zest for life that I can't imagine that some of that isn't in me somewhere. Like I can connect to that energy. I can be around her and to channel that and to make that my strength, right? That's kind of my touchstone. And I'm sure we all have people in our lives like that can inspire us and teach us and move us into these places that might feel impossible to go otherwise. I don't know how many of you know who George Bernard Shaw is, but he won a Nobel Prize. He was a literary genius, and he brought play into everything that he did, and all of his the plays that he wrote and manuscripts. And his philosophy is that we don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing, right? Like, our bodies can look however they look, but we determine how old we are, right? And my grandma was the epitome of that. And so, I look to her as that example. Another thing that we can really use as a tool is that there are lots of different types of play. And I'm sorry, PowerPoint just gave me those icons. They don't make a whole lot of sense with the rough and tumble, but the others, they do. Maybe when you drink, it's rough and tumble. I don't know. That's as close as I could get. But the rest are pretty cool. So rough and tumble, I'll give you some examples. So when we look at play, I think we get really focused on it has to look this way. This is what play is. But that's so not the case. So in this category, tug of war, capture the flag, scavenger hunts, kickball, just getting out and having fun with your body that way. There's ritual, chess, board games, anything where strategy's involved and you're using your mind. Then we've got imaginative play. This is where we paint, color, tell stories, craft, make music. Then we've got body. This is where we defy gravity, whether we're in the water or through yoga or roller coasters. We're propelling our body through space and we're letting it just defy all odds. And then we've got object play. That's when we bring things in like Legos, Jenga blocks, or build those forts out in the woods. The more that we open ourselves up to these options, the less we confine ourselves to thinking that it has to be a certain way. So, oh my gosh, this is going so fast, you guys. I have so much more. It's important to realize, I think above all else, if you take nothing away from this today, what you can really root in is the fact that all of our nervous systems are designed around protection, right? So if we get centered on, how much protection does my nervous system feel like it needs to have, we can go there and we can use that to show us how much we're being restricted. If you need to pull in a professional, NLP worker, energy healer, do it. Go out and get a Reiki session going, but open this energy flow, because if your nervous system is always watching for that next threat, then play is not going to be an option. So that's the one thing that we can take out into our world and use it. Also, there is a slight call to action here, and that is get out and play. If you can just, before you leave today, make one commitment to yourself that you're going to get a person or a group together, maybe go play a game at the park, maybe sit together at home and play a board game, maybe just go out and talk at a picnic near a lake or something. But commit to yourselves right now. I'm going to leave here and I'm going to bring that into my world this week. If you want. You don't have to, but it might be fun. Because play doesn't have to look a certain way. We can go do ecstatic dancing at the Krishna temple. We can sit with our friends and just have, a nice little cocktail party and still have that energy move through us. So I'd like to leave you with a little gift. This isn't as expressive as the two that I frightened you with earlier. This is my gift, and I love meditating. So if you could just gently close your eyes and bring yourself into the space, I would love for you to really connect right now to that inner child. And I want you to see that inner child playing its favorite thing. Whatever that was when you were young. When were you the most yourself? Imagine that activity that brings a smile to your face and that allows you to open to the energy we've created here. I want you to see that child in all of their energy. I want you to smell what they're smelling. I want you to feel the clothes they're wearing. Feel what life in that moment was like for that little part of you. And I want you to go to that part of you and ask, just like Mindy did today, will you play with me? And see what happens. Watch yourself play. Watch yourself be. And see what changes about your body. Watch how your heart opens. Watch how your nervous system changes when you let this energy in. And with that energy, I'd like to move into a spiritual mind treatment as we acknowledge that God is all around us right now. That as we see ourselves playing with this child version, that is God. And together, as I join with this God, I speak a reality that is true for me. That healing is everywhere. It is a choice away. And as I connect with those around me and as I experience my community, the fullest expression of myself is available. I know it is everywhere and it is abundant. And that like the flowing spring, I can step into it and be washed clean at any moment. I feel that flow all around me, cleansing, purifying, removing anything that separates me from that child I was just playing with. And I allow us to join. I bring that child energy with me into the present moment, giving thanks that I was able to connect with it today. And I release all of the struggle, all of the need to make things a certain way. And with that innocence, I release it into the law. And together we say, and so it is.